How's it going, everyone? Classy Tech, and this is the part 2, the gaming part of the Samsung QN90A versus the LG G1. And again, the G1 is on the left and the QN90A is on the right. So here at the beginning, just showing the settings for the SDR gaming modes, which Fortnite is SDR on the Xbox Series X. And when using the splitter, it's only going to be at 4K 60Hz. And no VRR as well. So I also show a couple times here what happens if I push the brightness up on the Samsung, because the G1 or the LG OLEDs period in SDR game mode do not allow you to adjust the peak brightness setting. So if you max out the OLED light and turn up the contrast a bit, that's as bright as the OLED can get in SDR gaming. On the Samsung, it was somewhere between like 10 and 15 on the brightness setting would match the brightness of the LG. I put it at 25 here, and then again, there's going to be a couple times where I move it up and down. So like it'll get completely blown out and washed out looking from the camera because the camera is locked. But in person, it doesn't do that. It just keeps getting brighter and brighter. So if you really need an SDR gaming TV to be very, very bright, then the Samsung does that in spades. Also, this is very early after I had opened it and put them side by side, so the local dimming I didn't touch yet. Later I will move it to low for SDR and I use it in high for HDR. Standard doesn't really follow the EOTF curve, and it doesn't really look that great. It kind of increases the brightness of mid-range stuff just too much, but if you're gaming and it's SDR, you might like that. So it just really pushes mid-level brightness stuff a lot more. So, I mean, it's pretty obvious right here just how much brighter it can get, and it's, again, only at like 25 brightness setting on the QN90A, whereas the LG G1 is as bright as it can get for SDR gaming. In a moderately lit room, I think the G1 gets bright enough in SDR gaming, though it would be nice just to get a little bit more brightness out of it. I personally wouldn't go any brighter on the Samsung than where it's at now, but some people do. That's up to you. LG keeps the brightness somewhat limited to try and hold on to the colors as much as possible so they don't get washed out. So throughout this video, I'm going to switch back and forth between doing side-by-sides like this as well as just solo time with each one, and point out some positives and some negatives for both of them when it comes to gaming. Some things you may already know about each of them, and some things you may not. One thing in particular I have not seen anyone else mention about the QN90A when gaming, so that is a bit concerning. However, they both are excellent gaming TVs. Of course, nothing's perfect, and they do have strengths and weaknesses, but compared to other brand TVs, these are definitely the best for gaming, especially for serious gamers. You know, the Sonys, they do have 4K 120 now, and they do look a little better graphically, and they also have their pros and cons, but there's a lot of lacking features, so we'll just keep it on the LG and Samsung for now. Here is the game mode menu settings on the Samsung. The auto setting basically puts is ALLM. Here's the game bar. At the time of this, I did not have the new update for the LG to have its version of a game bar, so I couldn't show that. It just has the game optimizer menu. So aside from the deep blacks that the LG can provide, I would say for SDR gaming, again, if you really need something bright, then the Samsung probably gets the win here for SDR gaming. So before we move on to some of the troublesome areas for both of these TVs, just a reminder that if you press the like button, more people will see this video. And if you can check out the affiliate links in the description if you're going to be buying anything on Amazon in the next day, that will help me out. And thank you guys for watching all the content that I've been doing, and I'm trying to get more and more out as quickly as possible. So before I cut over to the next clip, I just want to explain that I have not seen anyone mention anything about the QN90A having a what's called a laggy backlight in HDR games. So I set the Xbox and Destiny 2 appropriately for the brightness, and the TV was set up correctly and had local dimming on high, so it should be around 1800 to 1900 nits in HDR. And in Destiny 2, I was noticing very bright spots or very bright areas would overblow the brightness and then squish it back and bring out the detail. It's like the backlight is going too bright and then trying to bring it back down to show what it's supposed to show. And I guess that's called a laggy backlight. Don't know if that's technically correct or not, but that's what I've heard. So I was kind of surprised that no one has shown that. So if you look down there at that bottom right corner, those 3 items, they blow out and then they come back into detail. And then if I do that on the G1, you can see it just looks normal. There's no change. And then also under the gunsmith here, there's a little light that I saw on the QN90A that it is a really bright glowing symbol, and it kind of leaks the glow. That red light right there, that glow leaks into the dark area around it. You can also see some blooming in this area, whereas on the LG it glows but it doesn't leak into the dark area around it. So that's one of the issues that I had with HDR gaming on the QN90A. Here's another area that's very dark with a very bright spot, just to try and look for blooming or light leakage or any other kind of issues. It's in some areas it is very distracting, and in other areas it's not noticeable at all. So here in this area at least, it didn't bother me, and TV looked amazing, super bright, very fun to play on. And now I have it connected directly to the Xbox Series X without a splitter or going through the receiver, so that it can do VRR and 4K 120 Hz. Now here is another just absolute showcase game for this TV. In these bright daytime scenes in Sea of Thieves, it is just incredibly good looking, very gorgeous. The water looks amazing, the best I've seen on any TV. The HDR highlights are super bright. The colors are just, again, it's incredible looking. It really is. It's just when you get to nighttime in this game, that's when the TV kind of struggles. So the TV's local dimming doesn't exactly work as well as it does in movie modes when it's in game mode. And now if you've always been an LCD or LED backlit LCD TV user, this is probably not going to bother you at all. You probably won't even notice. But if you come from an OLED, then it's just not going to work for you. You get to these kind of areas, you see the light leaking into the dark areas, and then it blooms or just turns those dark areas gray. And again, if you're just used to an OLED, it's just going to look like it's falling apart to you. The camera, again, sorry, not much I can do about it. The camera doesn't capture it as well as you see it in person. One thing that is good though, this little game bar thing with the FPS counter, it seems like the FPS number updates faster than it does on LG. At least I see the number changing more. This update for Sea of Thieves does have some major performance bugs and issues, as well as tons of screen tearing if you don't have VRR enabled. So hopefully that gets updated, but that's the thing with the game, not the TV. So here you can see the FreeSync information on the LG. It just doesn't seem like it shows the drops as much as the Samsung. I don't know if the LG readout is a bit buggy. The performance is great. There's no difference in how it feels or plays or looks, other than the LG's biggest problem with gaming is when you are in VRR, whether you have FreeSync on or it's Forum VRR, it doesn't matter. If VRR is enabled, this area, this whole like dark expansion area, especially this town on the LG, had horrible VRR flicker. It's extremely difficult to show that on camera. I did find one area where I can show it right here a little bit. It's like right there it flickered. And if you just keep looking for that flicker in this area, but imagine it all the time in this expansion in any of the dark areas. It's just constant flicker through this whole thing. This is the only game and the only part of this game where it's an issue. In Destiny, I can only see it if I'm in a dark area and I open my character screen menu. And like in Call of Duty, I can see it in some of the menus or loading up the game. But this is the first time where it was just absolutely very distracting and really bad in a game that I've seen personally. There may be other games or other scenes in other games where it's this bad. I don't know. But this is something that I hope gets fixed soon. So again, both TVs have really strong points, and they both have some weak points as well. Now here back to another side-by-side with going through the receiver, so it's 60 hertz, and this is really not fair to either TV because I have to set the brightness somewhere in the middle, so I just set it to 1000 nits, which means the Samsung's not going to get as bright as it could, and the LG is going to have to tone map. And anyway, so you can see for the most part they're pretty similar in normal lighting conditions. The Samsung, again, in the dark areas does start to fall apart. The blooming is noticeable. The shadowy areas don't really get black, they just get gray. And like when you're looking at the sun and it's a really bright scene, the Samsung really makes that super bright, whereas the LG is not anywhere close as bright. But if it's a darker area and there's smaller like lamps and stuff, then they either look the same or the LG could look brighter, because the Samsung just struggles in trying to show something bright when it's in a dark area. And like right here, you can see the detail around the sun for the LG, whereas the Samsung's blowing it out because it's struggling trying to keep things dark while trying to hit that highlight at the same time. Now here's just some pictures that I took just to show, again, the shadowy areas just don't look that great on the Samsung, but bright areas look amazing. So in the end, I don't think one really wins over the other. I think they offer just completely different experiences for gaming, and whichever one you choose is going to be personal preference and due to how bright your room is or just what you like overall. And while changing the dynamic tone mapping on the LG off of HGIG and putting it on just to on is not correct, doing so will make it really close to matching the Samsung with its local dimming set to high. I've also noticed that it greatly helps the shadow detail from being crushed on the LG when you set its dynamic tone mapping to on instead of off or HGIG. Just make sure that you set the brightness setting in the game or at the console level correctly to 800 nits when doing so. But here in these pictures you can just see how kind of grayed and almost bluish gray some of the dark areas get on the Samsung at nighttime. So it's one of the trade-offs that you have to make for the brightness of it if you choose to go with the QN90A. When it comes to input lag, I think they're about the same. No noticeable difference. There's no ghosting that I see on the Samsung, and I guess that's pretty much it for the gaming. So hope this helps. Have a good one, and check out the next one.